Queen Ana Maria was an incredible general, capable of bringing La Pampa to the heights of power in La Plata, terrorizing the landed people near her for land and loot. But ultimately, Queen Ana Maria is mortal and has died, and in her passing has allowed the entirety of La Plata to breathe a collective sigh of relief, as her only living heir, Queen Valentina of La Pampa, a content, trusting, and stubborn character, looks like she does not have the personality necessary to keep the conquests of her grandmother going. But this is the secret history of the Gauchos, the story of how Queen Valentina, despite her predilections, ultimately founded the Empire of La Plata and brought fear to southern Brazil, motivated primarily by a desire to allow her horde to feed, but also by the last words her grandmother ever gave her: "Do not fear greatness." Alright, welcome back to We Play Games. I'm Walker, and here we are in CK3 After the End, South America, about to play Queen Valentina of La Pampa. Now, Queen Valentina, as I mentioned, she's not necessarily the same sort of warrior queen that Ana Maria, her grandmother, was, but because of the size of the men-at-arms that her grandmother is passing to her, as well as the expenses of her court, Queen Valentina's natural predilection away from power doesn't matter that much. The troops need food. And that is what the secret history of the Gauchos is going to record. So here in South America, there's like a lot of different cultures and religions. I'm going to post a lore video for this area down below. But these people are nomadic, and because they're nomadic, they have huge herds that move around with them. Ultimately, if you just stay in one location for too long, it causes economic and social distress. And so Queen Valentina, even though she doesn't necessarily want to go on the warpath, because her grandmother built this enormous army, it has to be put to work. Now, just towards the end of the life of Queen Ana Maria, she launched a great raid against the Kingdom of Cordoba, which is this Muslim kingdom out here in the outskirts of Argentina, but it is being completely overwhelmed right now. And the grand raid against Cordoba is successful. Queen Valentina has given birth to a son, but unfortunately, because of the fact that we married our first cousin, he's inherited a congenital defect. We'll see if Adaliva survives, but given that he is bleeder, it seems pretty unlikely. And King Antonio and Queen Valentina have become soulmates. Her friends largely respected and liked her, and that was sort of like the first big change when it came to her reign versus the reign of her grandmother. Queen Ana Maria being paranoid and arbitrary and honest, she just never trusted anybody else with command over her troops, and that meant that they just couldn't be in a lot of different places doing a lot of different things, or at least that is what the secret history records. Now, the history of the Gaucho, it's going to be recorded largely through oral tradition, but I'm going to invite this character, Sebastian Malanen, into our court. He's a genius, and maybe he's just going to record some of our history for us. We'll see. We have a second son, Enrique, and unlike his elder brother, he's not cursed with hemophilia. But the Gauchos never backed down from any opportunity to prove themselves in combat, and it was exactly that sort of cultural tradition of just hunting down enemy armies on the field, kind of regardless of their diplomatic state, that allowed the troops of the Gaucho to be so dominant during this time period. Basically, anytime we catch an army on the board, we're gonna wipe it out just for the prestige, but I think that it is also flavorful because here we are playing as Pampiano characters, horse lords, Gaucho legacy, and we are gonna need a lot of prestige because we're gonna try to create the High Kingdom of La Plata. I think what we're gonna do is divide Queen Valentina's reign into two sections. We're gonna have the formation of the Kingdom of La Plata, and then probably a bunch of conflicts with Brazil, if I had to guess. Because Brazil is usually a pretty good target once you're strong enough to attack them. We have a third son now, Roque de Andant. So the House of Andant is coming back in a big way. But that's good because it really was like almost extinct. Queen Valentina was the last of her line due to her father dying from injuries, her aunt dying from illness, and her uncle dying in some duel with actually one of our warriors. I don't know how that managed to happen. Maybe they got drunk and they just got into a fight over nothing. And now the old king to the south, King Horacio I, actually Queen Ana Maria's soulmate, has finally passed, which means that our brother-in-law is the new king down in Rio Negro, but because he was one of our vassals, he took some land with him. Queen Valentina, unwilling to give up on her grandmother's legacy, is going to go ahead and attack for the Duchy of La Pampa, but we just want to secure our southern border before we continue our path north. Poor King Horacio. He's going to try to defend against us, but oh boy, we captured him in battle. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and enforce this. Now, the early reign of Queen Valentina was pretty indistinguishable from the reign of her grandmother. It was mostly nomadic skirmishes, raiding, pillaging, but a sea change is about to occur. Queen Valentina has been inviting courtiers into her court with different faiths and different traditions, and they've all made it clear to her that the power of her nation is enough to start conquering. So rather than just sending our troops out to gain foraging, we're gonna start taking land. We've finally conquered the Kingdom of Blanca. This is apparently the third conquest, so our grandmother failed on her first 2 attempts. But given that we have an actual command structure in place, we were actually able to defeat the High Kingdom of Blanca there. And we'll go ahead and set our third son up as the new High Chief. But importantly, because we actually have a legacy that gives us renown for giving land away to our kids, we actually got a ton of renown from that. So we're going to go ahead and take renown name, and we're going to push up towards earning respect as well, because that's, I think, something that Queen Valentina would want her family to do. The time has finally come for us to drive Libertador Horacio out of the kingdom. So we're going to go ahead and attack for the Duchy of Lujan, and we're going to meet the El Libertador on the field. We were outnumbered initially, but their troops are just much lower quality, and we annihilated them. Oh my god, we destroyed their stack and captured El Libertador in one battle. 58 days. Well, there we go, Lujan is ours. We'll give that to our second son. But having thus defeated the Directorio Supremo and driven them out of Lujan, they do still have a little bit of territory near Buenos Aires, but the Kingdom of Uruguay is wide open to us. Now, realistically, we've probably fought with the Kingdom of Uruguay before. You know, nomadic people move around La Pampa and La Plata, but this is going to be a war of extermination against Uruguay. But we'll collect some back taxes first. And the Kingdom of Uruguay has actually sent their troops out to fight us. Well, bad news for them. Our troops are very elite and very well commanded. Yep, there they go. And with Uruguay having thrown away their army before the war has even started, we should have a pretty easy time pillaging Entre Rios here, probably taking it and then seeing if we can attack Mesopotamia, because they're also apparently having some difficulty down here. Now, the Kingdom of Mesopotamia is eventually going to pass to House Boutron, which is like the bastard offshoot of Emperor Martin, but I don't think that House Boutron is going to be able to stop Queen Valentina here. La Pampa's power is simply too great. And Queen Valentina, having now learned Engineered for Destruction, we could hang out and try to pick up guerrillas or trained cavalry, but I think it's more flavorful and more fun for her to move into diplomacy, because that's what she's trained in. She's not a warrior queen like her grandmother. She likes to let other people do the fighting for her. So we'll switch over to family focus, and you know what? We can go ahead and go on a hunt, like, immediately to burn off some stress. The time has come for Queen Valentina to take the Duchy of Entre Rios and enter the Rio de la Plata area. The Kingdom of Uruguay has rebuilt its army, but it's not going to be enough. Now, this is almost certainly not the first time that nomadic people have come to attack the Kingdom of Uruguay. I imagine they probably have fallen back to Montevideo a couple of times over the past couple of hundred years. So this initial invasion probably is disturbing to the area, but not necessarily causing chaos. Not yet. And Entre Rios has been conquered, but because these guys are considered evil, we can revoke their titles. So any of them that we captured during that war, we're going to take the land away from. But we're going to go ahead and now, using Entre Rios, we're going to attack Mesopotamia, because if we can take Corrientes here, we can probably cause their kingdom to disintegrate. It's not very powerful at the moment, and this area right here in the Rio de la Plata is the only thing keeping them together. Oh, Valentina the Kind has gotten a cat. Perfect. We're gonna name him Pico after Eileen's cat there. And we've become a poet. Excellent. So this secret history isn't really secret, it's just recorded orally. Because the Gauchata, the Pampiano, these people down here, They are nomadic, and so carrying around books as part of their literary oral tradition doesn't really make sense, but carrying around poetry does. For those of you who know the history of the Mongols, or for that matter, the history of the Bedouin, you'll know that a lot of oral history is recorded. It's just, not written down. And so that's where the concept of a secret history comes from, although the Mongols did keep special records on the nature of the conquests of Genghis Khan. And that's sort of what we're getting here, is the back end, what Valentina was really like. Because of course, chroniclers in Brazil are going to emphasize her as a powerful warmonger, but they are going to overlook who she was as a person, which is very influential on the outcome here in La Plata. Oh man, we have another son? Wow, we are just rolling in kids, but hey, that's good. And there it is, we've conquered Corrientes. The wealth we can gain from launching a grand raid against the Kingdom of the Interior is immense, because we're not just going to be launching a grand raid against the Kingdom of the Interior for Mercedes, we're going to try to take Buenos Aires. If we can take this metropolis, it means we won't be able to raid it anymore, which is a little bit of a bummer, but it's an enormously powerful location for us to have under our control, and I think important culturally if we're going to be forming the Kingdom of La Plata. Oh, and the Kingdom of the Interior has already sent their armies off to die. We're also going to go ahead and just start supporting cultural acceptance here. I want to get our area as stable as we can before we can't anymore. Oh no, King Antonio is in really bad shape here. Ill, one-legged, wounded. What happened? Oh no, and King Antonio has died. But he gave us 6 kids, so that's quite the haul for Queen Valentina. But it was exactly the death of Antonio that allowed Queen Valentina to marry into Osul. So we're going to go ahead and marry High Chieftain Borja, but now we have an ally as well as territory within the Empire of Osul associated with us. And so that is going to be another one of those historical forces that kind of pulls Valentina north. Well, the Grand Raid has been successful and we've been able to seize control of Buenos Aires, but we've managed to lose not only our husband, but our son. And because we're actually trying to revoke a title from a princess of Uruguay, that's actually drawn Uruguay back into the war. It's going to be really rough for them, though. We should have a pretty easy time blowing them apart. But as it stands, our truce with Interior has actually run out, and so now Queen Valentina is going to take the bold step of actually putting her troops onto ships. We've been fighting against people using ships for a little while here, but I think the utilization of ships by the Pampiano people is going to be the thing that really lets them leverage their strength, because we're going to start sending our troops far afield. Alright, so just as we are moving into the Kingdom of Interior, a holy war has been declared against us. The Particularist Catholic Church has decided that our threat needs to be contained. So just as that great holy war, the Particularist crusade for Mesopotamia is building in the background, we've had a peasant rebellion here. And unfortunately, due to the passing of the Queen of Uruguay, a little bit of territory has gone back to them, so we might have to fight a second war against them in the future. There it is, the crusade has been launched. It's a huge army on their side too. Not a lot in the war chest, but if we can win this war and win it decisively, it'll get us some breathing room, I hope. But we're going to be fighting against a lot of Christians very angry that we are moving in on Mesopotamian land. And ironically, because the Kingdom of Uruguay actually has territory inside Mesopotamia yet again, they're actually going to help us. Our army can't be everywhere, but because we have a 24 military organizer, it can be almost everywhere. That is a huge army. We'll see how they turn out, but that's a lot of Crusaders showing up all at once. See them trickle in. Yeah, they're gonna keep sending their stacks of Crusaders to fight against us, but because they can't do it all at once, we just demolished them. And we will indeed win the crusade. So Queen Valentina has actually given birth to twin sons, Enrique and Matthias. So now we have some heirs in Osul. But having now raided the Kingdom of Uruguay, we're gonna go ahead and attack them. And this time we're gonna go straight for the heart. So we've pushed them out of Mesopotamia primarily, except for this little area which the new queen's brother inherited. But we're just gonna go straight for the jugular here. Ooh, all right, well, we managed to capture the sun and air in the first siege here. Uruguay's troops are still kind of wandering around in the background. They're afraid to engage us for good reason, but that just means that our siege engines are gonna have a field day here. And just like that, we've seized control of Montevideo. I think we're going to go ahead and set up Enrique, eldest of the twins by Borja, as the new duke. But unfortunately for us, after the death of King Antonio, our soulmate, we've taken on a couple of lovers, and now we're pregnant by one of them. So that's going to cause some issues with our husband. Queen Valentina, she's just trying to live her best life here. Somehow Adaliva has actually survived his hemophilia, so we'll see if he turns out okay. If he dies, then he dies. We have plenty of heirs, but if he doesn't, then that would be pretty interesting. It remains a matter of debate as to why Queen Valentina declared war on King Mauricio here, but the secret history records that the people were simply worried about the amount of money that the queen was spending on her charity. In her stress, she'd become improvident and gave away enormous amounts of wealth to the people of La Pampa. Now, this of course made her very well respected and loved by the people, but it of course meant that the treasury was always dwindling on the edge. And Queen Valentina's advisors made it clear to her that if she wished to continue, she needed to move into Brazil. So we're going to go ahead and try to take this territory here, and then we're going to just do a little bit of pillaging out in here, because I want to get us in control of this culture, Barriga Verde. It's a Solista language, Solista heritage culture, which means that if we can actually form a hybrid culture here, then we can get access to being Brazilian, which I think that would be fun. If we could set up an independent La Plata down here that's actually laid claim to some of Brazil's southern territory, then maybe they'll act like a later Gene or a Manchu equivalent trying to invade Brazil from the outside. Now, this war with King Mauricio is going to be a little harder because they actually have nomadic units here. They have Gaucho jinetes and light horsemen. Critically, they also have hired some pikeman mercenaries, which are pretty scary against our all-cavalry army. Enrique has become Midas touched. Well, he's our second son, which means that in the event that High Chieftain Adaliva dies before producing an heir, we have a very capable backup. Just like that, Queen Valentina has moved into Osul. Oh, and at the same time, it looks like Brazil has disintegrated all on its own. Oh my god. So I was planning on having Queen Valentina, launch a raid against Brazil, getting tons of money and marching off into the distance, but it looks like the kingdom has just completely disintegrated. But that's perfect, because that means that we got time for us to march through and just take whatever we want. But the first thing that we definitely want is money, because we are burning through it. But I guess we're going to go ahead and take advantage of the collapse of Brazil here, and we're going to move on Florianopolis. Now, Florianopolis is another one of these metropolises, and so not as useful to us as a nomad, but we can turn it over to one of our kids and have them govern for us. Afonso has hired an enormous number of mercenaries to try to resist us, because we did wipe out part of their army there. All right, looks like we're going to actually get our stack wipe. Good. Josefa has come of age, and I guess it's time for us to marry her off to somebody. And I think we found the possible option here. Holy crap, 33 martial, 46 prowess. All right, well, I guess we're marrying into this dynasty. Ah, this is an event character, it looks like, because he's actually the founder of this religion. And just in time, we actually managed to send High Chiefess off to marry him. Depending on when Queen Valentina dies, we might pop down there and form the Empire of Patagonia. All right, we've seized Florianopolis. And the remnants of the Kingdom of Interior are falling to civil war, and they have no army left. So it looks like a great opportunity for us to just sweep in here, launch a grand raid, and seize maybe the entirety of the rest of this kingdom if we can siege it down in the right order. Now, the one thing that might help the Kingdom of the Interior survive this is that, of course, they have a lot of castles in here just to help shore them up against all of these nomads up north. But what they didn't realize is that the nomad threat wasn't coming from the north, it was coming from the south. We weren't able to conquer the entirety of the Kingdom of the Interior, but we were able to take 3 provinces. Good enough for me. Oh, and it turns out that Cusi has actually died, and now Emperor Jorge is in control. But because he's Arepequeño culture instead of Quechua, now the empire is the Empire of Perulivia. Oh, the old Queen Sofia has died of stress. So that means that we no longer have a truce with them, and we can go ahead and attack. I think we'll just attack for Littorio. You'll hear Littorio is the largest duchy remaining to them. There it is. We've defeated the Kingdom of Uruguay and seized the Duchy of Littoral. We'll just give that to Duke Enrique. We're going to have a couple of like very, very powerful princes underneath the kingdom. Given that we're probably going to refound the Kingdom of Uruguay once we've conquered it, I'm okay just giving all of it over to Duke Enrique. So having now defeated the other main powers within the borders of La Plata here, Queen Valentina is on the cusp of becoming a high queen. But there are still a lot of territories, especially within Buenos Aires, that are independent from our power. So we're going to go ahead and attack a lot of them. But given that almost all of these are going to be county conquests, I won't announce each of them. We'll just do them all. All right, so Queen Valentina has managed to befriend a character with an inspiration whose skill is legendary. So we've recruited him to us. We've given him an enormous budget. Fortunately, we've been raiding a little bit while clearing out territory here, but oh boy, it's gonna be a lot of money. We got an insanely good spear here. Raid speed plus 65% is really gonna help out the end part of Valentina's reign here. She's 43, so she's got plenty of years left in the tank, but we are gonna divide her reign up into two sections before she becomes the Empress and after. Because after she becomes Empress, then her diplomatic state will change a little bit. I think we're going to have to start pressing north, because I think our money is just so tight that we need to launch a grand raid against the Empire of Sudeste here. But we're going to start really running into money problems because we need 500 gold in order to form the High Kingdom. So I think we're going to go ahead and just start pillaging Sudeste, even if we can't necessarily launch a grand raid. Just doing a lot of raiding along the coast should get us plenty of money. There's a civil war brewing inside the HCC. It looks like the Martin Luther pseudo character has emerged. So we will see how that affects their religion and their stability over there. Oh boy. All right, so by raiding the edge of Sudeste, we have caused them to call their troops together, and boy is it enormous. Their army looks like it's going to outnumber us 2-1. But the bigger problem is that all of this is jungle, and I don't really want to fight their armies in jungle if we can avoid it. And right on time, we actually captured Queen Florencia when we captured her capital. So we can go ahead and take 2 counties here. That gets us 200 gold. And now Queen Valentina is now High Queen Valentina. All right, so that's the first episode of our Secrets of the Gaucho campaign. We're doing 2 parts for Queen Valentina just because she inherited at such a young age. I figured it would probably be impossible to get it all done in one episode, but we formed the High Kingdom of La Plata. Unfortunately for us, our military is still not quite strong enough to take on Sudeste. And you can see here on the terrain that there's a wide splash of jungle and hostile territory when it comes to the sort of warfare that the Gauchos have been conducting thus far. Either we've been fighting on plains, or we've been fighting against enemies that are just so much weaker than us that it doesn't matter. But these guys have 17,000 troops. Now, why are we going to attack the Kingdom of Sudeste? Because if we can do it, and we can get away with it, we can make an enormous fortune in one grand raid, fix our economy forever. And that's kind of what Queen Valentina's reign has been like thus far. A very well-liked queen. She's had a little bit of troubles with her personal life, but no matter what, she is still subjected to the same sort of historical forces that everybody else is, and Queen Ana Maria, her grandmother, really did leave her with an enormous legacy. Just lots of mouths to feed. So tune in for our second part here with High Queen Valentina. That's the end of Do Not Fear Greatness. I think High Queen Valentina has definitely gotten over her fear of success. Now that we're at 12,000 prestige, she has not yet become the mother of the nation. I think in order to do that, we are going to need to move into Brazil. All right, that's Walker. Take care.